Welcome to the Pivot Experience podcast, where leadership transformation isn't just a concept, it's a journey we take together. This is where real leaders share real stories about the moments that changed everything. In each episode, we dive deep into the pivotal experiences that transformed good leaders into great ones. Whether you're a seasoned executive, a rising star in your organization, or someone ready to take that next big step in your leadership journey, you're in the right place. Get ready to learn, grow, and maybe even find that spark that ignites your own leadership pivot. This is the Pivot Experience podcast, where your next breakthrough starts here.
What's up and what's happening, TPE family? We're back with another episode of the Pivot Experience podcast, where our aim and goal is to help leaders pivot into their next. And on today's episode, it's going to be no different. As you guys know, we like to bring on different guests that serve in different leadership capacities to be able to bring their story, bring their experiences, and for you to be able to get something to be able to help you on your leadership journey. I have a very special guest. You guys know that I've been having guests from the nonprofit industry, for-profit, and today we've got a nonprofit juggernaut on with us today. His name is Howard Pearl, and I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time boring you guys with my voice. I want you guys to get a grasp and understanding of who Howard is. And so, first and foremost, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing really well. Thanks very much. I appreciate the fact that you're going to leave me to bore them as opposed to you. That's a challenge.
No, I doubt that my audience is going to be bored at all. From what I read about you and what I've heard about you, you are doing some pretty amazing work, and you've been doing it for a long time. And I'll just say this before you get started. I'm gonna bore them a little bit before you do. Okay. I appreciate when I have the opportunity to listen to people who have been doing this, been in their careers longer than I have. I pride myself with being with one company for over 20 years and, building my own company. That's great. But to be able to sit at the feet of someone who has been doing it for a long time and who is a high achiever, someone who has generated a bunch of results, and changed and impact some lives of people is truly humbling. And so, I just appreciate you carving out some time on your calendar to spend a little bit of time with us. And I just wanted to make sure I'll drive that point home for you first and foremost, to let you know that your time is very much so valued by myself and by my audience, and we appreciate it.
Well, first off, the humbling is mine. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Yes, sir. It
is a privilege to do the work I do, and it is a privilege, to be able to address your audience. And my one goal for today is, hopefully, during our conversation, we can point out a thing or two from some of the experiences along the way that helps them to become either better leaders or better persons, or being able to contribute in a different or greater way, to the community that we live in. I think that is the goal, and I appreciate the opportunity to, I don't like to say proselytize, but you just can't talk enough about doing good work with good people, for good people, and for people that need good. And it's, I think, important that people understand that you can do well while doing and by doing good. Doesn't have to be one or the other.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. That last nugget there. If we don't say anything else important, if you heard what he just said, that'll take you far. But we were talking a little bit before we got started, and I want to start here. You mentioned that your career started in broadcasting, and then we didn't get a chance to go in any detail about that, but I think that would be a great starting point to figuring out who you are and what you're about. So take us from broadcasting and bring us up to what you're doing today.
You're talking, 50 years of 50 years. No, we're not getting it all. It started off, in AM radio. I went to work at a local radio station in the city I lived in, and it was something that I'd aspired to for many years. And it's a funny thing about how thoughts manifest, right? People forget that as you think, so you become, right? I mean, it is a natural law. You become what you think about most of the time. there were 5 radio stations in the city I lived in. It was a fairly large city, but there were 5 radio stations in the city, and I wanted to work particularly for this one station. One, it was close to where I lived, but two, that was the station I felt emotionally connected to. But of course, as a young person, I figured the only one that would never hire me is the one that I wanted to work for, because I saw them as being bigger than they, probably really were at the time. I applied at every one of the other radio stations, including alternative languages, and got turned down. I happened to walk into the last station, the one that I wanted the most, on the absolute perfect moment, at the perfect day, at the perfect time, that they were stuck for somebody and said, well, you're not normally what we would put in this position, but we're in this jam, so go ahead. And it took me years to sort out. That's where I wanted to be anyway. And I probably should have gone there first. But, chaos and fate, those are just, the universe's way of making an appointment for you in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
So, one, you got to think about the things that are important to you. You got to think about the things, we used to talk about them in terms of goals, but I think now they're really just their aspirations. I think the things that are important to you, you have to think positively about them. You have to focus on them, and you have to define them so that you know what it is that you want. And those thoughts do manifest and do attract things to us. So I did have a broadcast career. I wouldn't say it was long-lived. I discovered that you really couldn't make the kind of living I wanted to make in that industry. But I had a few different positions. I left that station to go up to another one called Cheer Radio 7, and I was what they call a rip and read guy, which is the news comes in on the teletype and you rip it off and you basically just read what was written for you. That became pretty boring. I came back down and went back to work for the same station. Anyway, ultimately, I moved on to other things. I soon came to understand that I probably was not, that I might be better off self-employed, that I might be better off, kind of digging my own ditch, as it were. And I say that because not everything I tried, not everything I did was successful. But as Mr. Edison said, no, I didn't fail. I just found 2,000 ways that we never want to try and make a light bulb. So in that case, I went from thing to thing in my life until I determined that I wanted to do it or I didn't want to do it. And the strange thing is that most of my life, I was either, in a private business or private industry that I worked, or I was the CEO of some fairly decent sized public companies as well. Pardon me, along the way, I've had a couple of public exits. Lived in China for 5 years. I created a new category in the off-road vehicle space. I mean, I know it's a long way from what I'm doing, but it was an avocation. It was something I did as a young person. And, when I got out of the company that I was working for, that I'd taken public, I was looking for something to do, and I wanted to do something that was fun. So I took an avocation and I turned it into a vocation. And that took me to China to build those vehicles. Prior to that, I ran a vertically integrated marketing service company where I think I really learned about business. My clients, I had some good clients. Ford, Johnson & Johnson. We relaunched the Chuck Taylor shoe for the Converse high top for what was then Converse. Now, of course, it's owned by Nike, but also Ralph Lauren. We had some pretty good Revlon. So we ultimately I took that public and we did really well, and I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes there, and in the beginning I was a little high strung, and maybe wasn't always the nicest guy to work for. I was young. But then I started to understand people a little bit more, and I never I never understood as a young person, and I think maybe we don't. We talk about how important it is to build culture. I didn't understand that culture is really the glue. Culture is what binds the parts of the atom together, to turn them into a molecule that can effect change, that can effect things. When I came to cars, uh, I just returned from doing a quick turnaround up in Canada on a flight data monitoring company. And I was doing some work for a friend of mine, and I was tapped on the shoulder, and somebody said, "Will you come and help us do a little turnaround on this little company does vehicle donations?" And I said, it has no interest to me at all. It had none. But the person who was doing the recruiting said, "Well, do me a favor. Would you please just come and take the interview, because I'm a little behind, and if nothing else, it'll get me another 2 weeks, so I can find another candidate." And I'd owed this person a favor or two, so I said, "Okay." I really was not interested at all. I didn't understand it, didn't understand the business, who gives away a car. This doesn't make no sense to me. Its volume was small. So I said, I went in for an interview, and I talked with the CEO, and the conversation went from, very, very stark sort of one-word answers for me, because I didn't really want to be there, to ended up being about a 2.5-hour conversation. At the end of the conversation, I said, "Well, this is what I want to do for you." And they said, "Oh, this is what you're going to do? I'm looking to hire. This is what you're going to do for me?" He thought I was mad, right? So anyway, it turns out I said, "Look, I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna get the current operator out. Clearly, he's squatting a bit there, and we can help him to understand he's got to go." And I had some people in my maybe some of your younger audience won't remember what the heck a Rolodex is, but in my address book, I had a few people I thought would be really good for the position. So I started here on what was supposed to be a 45 to 90-day assignment, and I could tell you that within the first 10 days, I knew I was going to stay.
Amazing,
And
amazing, amazing, amazing.
yeah, yeah, and I was stunned that I was following my conscience here, but it was, when you want to, those of you who have dogs want to take them for a walk and they don't want to go, and they're like, you got to drag them till they get going, and then away they go. Yeah, well, that was me. Um, I fell in love with the people that were here, most amazing. Many of them are still here 10 years later, most of them. Of course, by the time I got around to coming over here, I had already learned, 25, 30 years ago, that the best way to keep people is to start off by respecting them. You want to build a culture, treat them like they're the guy in the mirror. You can still be the boss and treat people as equals, because inside your company, you never know who's carrying the football that day. I remember writing a huge piece of business with Johnson and Johnson, because our receptionist had an amazing ability to hear voices and know who it was. And we got a call from a very senior guy in the Johnson & Johnson organization. And as soon as he said, "I'd like to talk to," she said, "Oh, hello, Mr. Roberts. It's nice to hear from you again. And if you'll hold for just a moment, I'll make sure that you get directly to Mr. Pearl and don't need to go through his reception." And that, plus the fact that they toured our facilities and so on. But she won that piece of business for us. So don't discount the receptionist, the lady at the front that's answering your phones, or the gentleman at the front who's answering your. Every single individual has the opportunity to be carrying that ball for you that day and convert. And so everybody needs to get the same amount of respect. And why wouldn't they anyway? You would if you met them on the street, right? Just that they're working with you. So I fell in love with what was going on, and then I began to understand the mission, what this company was doing for the community, and where it could go if it were led a little differently, and if we had a bit of a different mantra, and if we learned that the only two things that are really important when you're doing a nonprofit work, are the following two words, which are basically our mantra: gratitude and margin. Our business is no different than any other. We have to generate money. We have to sell our product. We have to do what we have to do in order to fund the nonprofits that we do, just that we're a bit of a different category. We raise money to support our nonprofit by raising money for other nonprofits, which means basically we are 100% of service. And that's the job. I found this to be, well, I'm here 10 years. A couple of weeks ago, I found this to be the most fulfilling of positions I've held in my entire life, and many of which I've owned. Again, I backed 2 of them into public entities, that I started. I have a great board. They allow me, latitude, but provide oversight and accountability, which I like. I like to be accountable, even as a senior chief executive. It's good to be accountable. That's why many of us are married, because the other half keeps us accountable.
That's right.
So I think that's about it. I mean, I could tell you about a number of enterprises I've been in and out of, but really, at the end of the day, the lessons are, all the same.
No, and I guess one thing before we jump into some of the questioning that I gotta highlight in your telling of the story is that for the young people listening out there, the best is yet to come. You've held many positions in many different corporations, maybe some with higher incomes or not, more authority, more this, more that, and you have the luxury now at this phase of your life to be able to say, I'm currently doing work that's the most gratifying. Not when I was 30, not when I was 25, and you may say like, okay, am I at my physical prime? No. And I know a lot of people may prioritize that, but it's all about are you progressing towards better? And it's so refreshing to hear that, usually, you start to hear certain people like, hey, I can't wait to stop working. Doesn't sound like that's the case for you. Doesn't sound like you're rushing out of the door. It sounds like to me that you're thoroughly enjoying what you're doing, and you're thoroughly enjoying building something that gives you purpose and gives you gratitude and makes you grateful on a day-to-day basis. And so the luxury of being able to continue to find those 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb, right? Continue to work at it and work at it and work at it. And again, also too, nugget number 2 that I picked up on in your story is that a lot of the times we're hungry for ownership, or we're hungry for something of our own, and there's something out there that's already built out that needs that needs your leadership, needs your perspective, needs your touch. And so don't discredit the great entities that are out there. That's one of the things that I'm big on when it comes down to, especially talking to younger people. This might be a little different, but it's like, they might scoff at the idea of working at certain jobs, and it's like, these places are generating enough income and capital to pay for these buildings. They have to be doing something right. And there's something of note and merit that you can learn that'll take you to the next level, and then you keep going and keep going. And so I love how, even though you just telling, organically telling us, who you are, I think there's a lot that can be picked up in just the texture of your journey and the things that you've experienced. Especially, I really love hearing, and it's encouraging for me. I just had a conversation with I sit on the board for Junior Achievement, the executive board for Junior Achievement. That's a nonprofit that does financial literacy things for kids. And I had my board visit yesterday, actually. And I was telling the lady that's the executive director, I was like, I used to, when I was in my 20s, I would dread and turning 30. Like, it was like the end of the world that you turn 30. And now I'm in my I'm just past my mid 30s, and I'm like, I'm looking forward to 40. I said, I think that's going to be some of my best years are going to be 40 to 50, in that range. And now, and I don't know how old you are. You might be much younger than what I realize, or what. I'm not trying to, but I'm just saying, it's getting better. The more you appreciate the journey, just continue getting better. And so I love, again, I usually get more out of the conversation than I care for the audience, even though I'm doing this for the audience. But I love, again, to just sit and listen to these stories. And, I get the privilege of hearing it first, obviously, right? I'm recording it, but it's one of those things where I love your perspective so far.
Well, what people have to remember, or what they have to learn, at the end of the day, what you will discover, if you live long enough, your rewards in life are going to be in direct proportion to the amount of service you provide to your fellow man. Period. Define that as you will. Whether it's, operating a soldering gun on a bench, how productive can you be? Or whether you're out raising millions of dollars for nonprofits. You want to make more money? Provide a greater service. You want to make more money? Do more. Life is, like one of those old-fashioned scales. There's two pots. There's the reward pot and there's the service pot. You can't have one filled without the other. You can't say, I don't remember who it was, whether it was, I don't know, one of the big motivational speakers of the 60s, I think it was Earl Nightingale, tells a story about, you can't walk up to the stove and say, "Stove, give me heat and I will give you wood." You got to cut down the tree, you got to cut up the lumber, you got to let it dry, and then you got to put it in the stove and burn it. And if you're heading into your 40s are going to be a challenge. You'll learn a lot of things. You'll make a lot of mistakes, but you can afford to make mistakes in your 40s because you should have a little bit banked. But I will tell you that for me and a lot of my colleagues and my contemporaries will tell you that their 50s. Now that may come down a little bit because of technology into mid 40s or late 40s. But by the time you're in your 50s, you know stuff. You know a lot of stuff. And it's no longer a struggle with who you are or what you are or why you're doing what you're doing. Now you're building, and you're not just building wealth. You're building a wealth and a treasure of experiences. Now there are things you don't even have to think about anymore that just come into the conversation because it's a part of who you are and part of your manifest destiny. But I will tell you that most people that have become really incredibly successful, and success isn't only defined by how much capital you have or how much asset you have. It's the whole package. And the thing is, in your 50s, you're going to start to accumulate. You're going to start looking in the garage or in the attic of the home you don't even have yet, saying, how can I accumulate all this junk? I got to clean it out, And if you have a partner, your partner is going to be saying, we got to get rid of some of this stuff, Or I say to my wife on occasion, look, we got too much stuff here. And she will say, no, we don't have enough space. Buy me a bigger house.
You got to be a fly on the wall in my house. Because that's the exact conversation I've been having over the last 4 to 6 weeks. She's like, you going to keep getting stuff? You're going to have to we need more space. All right, no, we need to get rid of things. No, we need more space. And I'm like, no, I'm going to figure out how to get rid of some stuff before we get into the more space conversation. That's for sure. No, that's good, man. Howard, you've been amazing so far, but I've got to get into some of the nitty gritty when it comes down to cars, man.
Whenever you're ready.
It sounds like you are helping cars have this incredible growth. You've been at the helm for some strategic mergers. You've helped cars return millions of dollars back into itself and other nonprofits. What are some of the key leadership principles that have guided you in making high stake decisions that impact thousands of organizations?
What is the secret of the world? Go big or go home, huh? Well, everybody has their own style, but in terms of foundations, I think I believe, look, integrity has to be where it begins. You really have to commit to walking up the middle. There's no dark white or light gray. It's right or it's wrong. So I would think that the first foundation is integrity. And people say, oh, it's easy to have all this pious integrity and be a moral corporation, when your business is succeeding. Well, your business is succeeding because you have this moral clarity. It's not the other way around. But you got to put some investment in there. You got to show people. So, one, integrity. Two, transparency. You got to let people see what you're doing. You got to let people, when I say people, I mean all people, internally and externally. One of the things I did when I got here was I said, stop selling, no more new business. Now you're going to concentrate on making the business that we have successful. We're taking these people on and we're telling them that we're going to show them how to make some money. In those days, we only did vehicle donations. Now we have 7 or 8 different mechanisms for any nonprofit of any size. We currently serve 11,000 nonprofits, or just under 11. I don't want to exaggerate, a little under 11,000 nonprofits, everybody from Red Cross, Shriners, St. Jude, Sierra Club Foundation, Kidney, a lot of big guys, and a lot of people that are just two-person animal rescues. We don't care. They all get treated the same. They all get exactly the same software. They all get the same marketing support and so on. So we went to work to build a large marketing department that would create material, not like when somebody says, like a franchise, oh, we got stuff all printed up, you just put your name in it. No, these are legitimate marketing programs that you can log into the content center and download stuff that's ready to go for the holidays, for this, for that, for all the rest of it. And then we have people that work with you to support that. So integrity, transparency, and now quality. Well, first off, let's start with quality of people. You're not going to get good people cheap. Look in the mirror. Maybe you don't want to pay them that much, but they got to have a good living where the last thing they're thinking about is, whether or not they can get another $75 out of you next week. Horse pucky. When I talk about being in service to your fellow man, that's also to the people that work with you. That's where the respect comes in. So next I have to add respect, right? And hire well. Be slow to hire. Hire well. Make sure it's somebody that you can get along with. Make sure it's somebody that you can respect. Make sure it's somebody that can respect you. And then you don't have to be, you need to be clear with the people that work with you about what your expectations are. If you talk to people here, right, we've grown the business over 500%. We've just, it's just really grown. When I got here, there were, we only had one segment that was NPR and PBS. We only had public media, and now we've got all these segments, and we're doing big business. But the reason we got there was that we proved that we could deliver a quality product consistently, and we did that by attracting and keeping good people who were as passionate about the objective as everybody else in the building. Look, a great book for everybody to read is Unreasonable Hospitality. If you prefer to listen to your books, you can get it online and listen. I like to listen at the same time as I read. I get greater retention. The cultural development in there, the culture that they build, is amazing. It's inclusive, and it's extraordinary. And then you got to go out and perform as you promised. Then you got to deliver on the goods. And you got to be able to stand up and say, oof, we made a mess of that one. We blew it. And you got to be able to go to your clients or your partners and say, look, the mistake was ours 100%. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Again, transparency, integrity, right? And we're going to fix it. And then sometimes you got to take the hard blow, right? Well, that's not good enough. You're out, right? And for me, I just keep going back. I go back 6 months later, and a year later, and 18 months later, and 2 years later, and eventually they realize what they gave up. But you have to understand when people get upset, they have a right to get upset. So, and then strategy, right? You got to know when it's time to move, as I like to call it, from the gut to the gauge. When do you stop thinking that you know everything there is to know about your business and what's going on out there, and start to rely on the data? When do you start to believe and have confidence in the people that are working for you and the data that they're assimilating on your behalf? Don't be afraid to invest money in good data, because the truth is the data provides the roadmap to get where you're going. They'll tell you what you're doing right, numbers going up. They'll tell you what's going wrong. And you'll see those indices year over year, the things that are similar in terms of seasonality, and therefore you can program better. You can forecast better. You know when you need extra capital, you can go to the bank ahead of time, or take in a shareholder, or recognize what's going on inside the industry so that you know who you may want to buy or merge, or, do some kind of a JV, either equity or strategic, strategic alignment, or equity-based strategic alignment, or equity-based joint venture, or non-equity-based joint venture, depending, right? And then don't be afraid to admit the things you don't know. When I don't know something, as much as I hate to pay the kind of money you got to pay, I go to a professional. And instead of cheaping out and trying to use ChatGPT and asking them questions, because those things, man, let me tell you something. Don't misunderstand me. AI is great. We use a lot of it here, right? But we also recognize those things hallucinate more than a guy on acid, right? I'm serious. I know guys on LSD that weren't hallucinating as much as, ChatGPT 4. I asked it to write, pardon me, I had to introduce an author, fairly well-known author, a woman who wrote The Gratitude Diaries, which is another great book you should read. It's the premise of how we work around here. Everybody has to read this book before they come to work for us. Changes lives, personal lives too, save your marriage in some cases. So I had to introduce her, and I know this author quite well. So it gave me some good ideas, and I liked it, and I thought, okay, I can use part of this. And then it's starting to talk about this book that she wrote and how impactful it was, and this and that. And I'm thinking to myself, Janice didn't write this book. Nah. So I went and did the research to make sure. No, she didn't write the book. This thing is wanting to write an introduction for this person, saying that she wrote a book she didn't write. So you have to really be careful about that. So you need to not be afraid to invest a little money in, professional advice, but know how to manage these guys, right? Their job is to keep you on the phone as long as possible at $600 an hour or $800 an hour, whatever it is. So build a relationship with people that you trust, and don't be afraid to use them when you need them. Don't become dependent on them. Do your research and say, this is what I want to do. What do you see wrong in this strategy? Don't ask people to tell you things. Ask people to ask you the questions that lead you to the answers. Interact with them. Don't just let them talk and take their advice. Take the advice and do the research. I could go on, but you look like you have a question.
No, honestly, transparently, I'm looking at my questions. As you're answering this question, I go, well, that covers that. That covers that. Like, you're just knocking it out of the park. I'm like, okay, I got a question, but I'm loving, and we'll pause. This is a great pause. If you're not taking notes by this time, I'm on the pause so you can go get your pen and pad, break your phone out, whatever it is that you do, because we're getting a master class. I felt like before this podcast started, I told y'all I like to sit at the feet of people who have done it for a long time, who have done it at a high clip, and you can tell. And for point of reference, did I send you these questions? No.
What? Did you send me? No.
So this
we met for the first time about 20 minutes ago.
So this is all internalized. Like, so this is, you can tell that you're living this. This is real stuff. This is not you didn't chat GPT the answers to these questions. Okay. This is stuff that you're actually living out. And so for me, it even has that much more value because I know that these are principles are tried and true. You're not just coming up with something that you found on the internet that sounds great. No, you're drawing from your real life experiences. So no, continue on, please. Don't let me stop you. Okay, give me one more, and then I'll ask a question.
Sure. Go ahead. What's interesting is that as I iterate this stuff, I go back to the moment when I learned the lesson in my head. I've a lot of conversations, about this, about this stuff, but they're not all the same. And so I remember different experiences in different places. It's why I'm a little frustrated today, which is why I sort of started out by saying, well, I used to be a screamer, right? People do stupid stuff and I'd go off. And so today I'm reminded that, sometimes you have to bite your tongue and just listen. And if you listen long enough, generally people will give you the answer to the question they're screaming at you about. And I will tell you something else as part of my next thing. People will rarely tell you the truth if you're sitting in the corner office. They will tell you the truth that they think you want to hear or that you need to hear because they need to ingratiate themselves to whoever's in power. Well, the truth is, if you keep giving the power away, more people will come and tell you the truth, because when they bring you bad news, you don't shoot the messenger. But by the same standard, you need to hold your people to a higher standard. You need to know that they can come and tell you the truth and not be in any yogurt, but they need to know that if things aren't going well, they need to tell you at 5 to 12, not 5 after. I need to know in time to do something about it. We can fix anything if we know what it is. But we can't resolve something that's allowed to go into a state of disarray when we knew about it beforehand. So you've got to be communicative. You've got to be. I was about to say earlier when we stopped chatting there for a bit. The thing is, you've got to give people responsibility and let them make the mistakes so that they're not afraid to make them. That's really critical. You've got to be confident enough in yourself that you can fix things if they break them, and then you got to let them break them. It's like raising children. I don't mean that my staff are like children. I just mean that the philosophical underpinning is similar. You've got to let people grow, and then they know that, they can spend their time thinking about how to make things work as opposed to how to avoid being in trouble.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
I think you've given us a masterclass in business in about 25, 30 minutes, man. Howard, this has been absolutely amazing. I just throw my questions to the side and say, hey, let them fly. Let them go, man. Because obviously you know what you're doing. And I think I'll just piggyback on something you said earlier. You said, when you're in your 50s, you know some things, right? So you're speaking like someone who knows some things, who's experienced some things, who have gone through some things, and you're on the other side thriving, in this phase in life. And you can definitely tell just through the way you're communicating. I'm going to use this time now just to segue into a segment. If you'll just entertain us here at TPE. We have a bit of a tradition. We play a game called Tug of War, and I'm going to give you 2 words that seemingly are both needed, but you're going to have to pick one. But before we do that, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we get into that?
Yeah, just one thing.
Go for
it. If you ask my people if I'm a demanding leader, I think they have learned I am not. What I am is exacting, which means we're going to discuss what I expect. We're going to agree on how you're going to achieve it. And then I expect it to be completed. And if not, you need to come to me in the meantime. But the reason I say not demanding and exacting is because in giving you the assignment, one of my questions is, what do you need to accomplish this? If you give somebody an assignment and you don't give them the tools or the energy or the support or the capital, and they don't succeed, that failure is yours as a leader. It's not theirs. And so you really need to know how to provide the support, whatever that may be. And I would say that's one of the richest things you really need to keep in here. You really need to understand that. And your people will follow you through the depths of hell if they know that you've got their back, and you're not going to kick them in the fanny for something that didn't work if everybody's been honest with each other.
And I think that what really supports that, what you just said, and you said it earlier, and I think when you marry these two, you've got something special, is when you do well at hiring. So you spend a lot of time selecting the right person, and then you give the right person the right amount of support. It's incredible what those individuals can produce. It's one of the things that we talk about in our business, is that, you spend a lot of time that I've heard people say the most expensive thing you're going to do is interview and hire somebody, like that process of getting them in. But then once you get them in, you give them the right tools, they will flourish under your leadership if you give them that. So I love that you added that on. I saw it in your face. I looked at it, I said, you got something else you want to add to that. So definitely thank you for.
All right. So what are your words? What are these words I have to jump over?
And I will say, I don't even think I felt like I think you know how you're going to answer some of these, but I get surprised. So we'll see. Okay. So are you ready to play tug of war?
I am ready to play tug of war.
All right. First set of words is confidence or humility?
Humility.
And why is that?
Because I hate to use the cliche, but no person is an island unto themselves. I didn't build this business. The people who work with me did. I had the easiest job of all. I had to just create the vision and then stand up in the front of the boat and say, we're going that way. And then, everybody behind me, they did the rowing, they did the heavy lifting. So as a leader, you have to learn how to articulate your vision at many different levels, to a board, or maybe to a funder, or to a banker, or to the person who's delivering the hot bread that just came out of your oven, whatever your business is. And so you need to be confident, of course, but humility will take you an awful lot further in my experience. This isn't an opinion, this is my experience. I get enough recognition. I don't need that anymore. That was nice in my 30s and my 40s, and it made me feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing enough that I can go out there and take a risk or a gamble here or there. And after that, it's recognize that you don't do it on your own. You can't do it without people, and you got to provide them with as much of the glory and the guts that go with it, because it's their victory just as much as it's mine, if not more.
No, love that. Love the way you answered that. Well, this one should be easy. Vision or execution?
Well, as a chief executive, there's only one way I can answer that question. Vision.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we talked about in the beginning, vision equals vacuum. Nothing in life moves forward without vacuum. Even the weather is low pressure pulls into high, right? That creates the rain. The rain falls, the water waters the plants, grow the food we eat. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So with a human being, That vacuum is created by when we're looking up there and we say, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. This is where I am, this is what I want to be. What's in the way? How do I get there, right? And if you've got a clear vision, it's like having a piece of steak dinner stuck in your tooth, and your tongue is not going to stop until you get in there and, with a piece of floss or something, get it out. And so when you've got a team of people, it's easy. You say, here's the big vision. Now, you guys in accounting, you take this piece. You guys in sales take this piece. You guys, you take this. You just worry about your pixels. You worry about your little corner of the screen. And then you can see that vision. You try and create it for them to see. And then they put their little pieces up together. And at the end of the day, you stand back and you go, yeah, there it is. Right there it is. We all brought, we started with a guitar and we added some drums. And then we brought in a sax, right? And then we brought in a xylophone, and then we brought in a bass, right? And all of a sudden, we had 60 members of this orchestra, and man, we was making music. Yeah. And that's what it is. Vision is the vacuum that pulls everything forward. So from a CEO's perspective, now, had I been a chief operating officer and you asked me the same question, I would answer it very differently.
Got it. I got it. Makes sense to me. All right. Ready for the next set of words?
Yes, sir.
Courage or wisdom?
That's a harder one to answer. I'm going to go with courage.
Little curveball there.
I'm going to go with courage. Wisdom comes from, to the doers go the doing, as they say. If you don't have the courage to take the first step, you'll never gain the wisdom to move forward.
True enough. True enough. All right.
But that was a challenge. I had to think. I really had to. No one's asked me that before.
Well, first time on the Pivot Experience, the first experience for Howard Pearl. I'm happy to be able to say that I've got that imprint on your life, and no one else can take that from us until they actually again. Awesome. Urgency or patience?
Well, in my life, it's always urgency. Even today, urgency. Like more, faster, bring them in, grow it, move it.
Got it.
So you asked me, am I, when am I? I was just on a call with somebody I was trying to hire, and they said, well, what's your vision? When are you leaving? You've had a big imprint. And I said, why would you even ask that? I don't know. It's not on the horizon. Well, what age do you want? I said, what age? I don't, first off, age is an issue I don't even think about, don't care. So it's not a matter of how much longer do I want to do this. It's,
yeah, how much longer you get to do it.
Yeah, how long you gonna let me do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. People ask that all the time. Well, don't you want to retire? Why? Look, I want to play a game of golf. I'll take a day off. I'll go play a game of golf. I'll do it with some business guys, and we'll make it productive, and we'll have a great time. Why? Because we love our business and we love golf, and we can do both at the same time, right? Or I'm not a big golfer, to be honest. I'm more of an off-roader, dirt bike guy. But the point is, we can go with people that we like and do things and recreate. So I think.
No, I love that answer. That's a great answer. Now here's the last one.
Okay.
I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm up for the surprise.
Well, you let me know if I surprise you on any of them. I want to know.
Clarity or flexibility?
Well, it's not a simple one either. So I'm sure some of your people out there are pilots, or have wanted to be pilots, so they know a little bit about airplanes, right? So you got what they call VFR, which is visual flight rules, where you take off and you can see everything. And you got instrument flying, right? When you're in the clouds, you can't see anything. You don't know if you're upside down, right side up, or whatever. You got to follow the gauges, right? It'll tell you where you are, what you're doing. And if you don't follow the gauges, you're going to end up like, well, it's not going to be good. So every flight has a little of both. Every experience has a little of both. And that's where the magic word, which we have not used yet, becomes impactful. And that's called faith. And with all due respect, you're not going anywhere without faith either. And I'm not necessarily talking about religious, take a knee for Jesus faith, although there's nothing wrong with that faith either, quite frankly. But faith in what you're doing, faith in yourself, faith in the people, that the vision is correct, that the vision is effective and effectable. But a little bit of spirituality isn't bad either. So I think that's the only way I can answer that question. You need a little of both.
No, I love it. I honestly thought you was going to lean in heavier on clarity, but the way you answered 3 and 4, I thought flexibility might have had a chance. And so, yeah, no, man, Howard, I can't thank you enough for ensuring that this meeting happened. I know we've had some scheduling things transparently, but man, I love that you just continue to follow up with us. I'm really, really excited about this interview. I've learned a lot. If no one else out there has learned anything, I've got the luxury of this recording, and I'm going to take, listen to this back a few times just to make sure I capture everything that you said. And before we get out of here, where can, if people wanted to interact with you or get connected with you, if that's a thing, how would they do that?
They can reach me my email. A personal email is howard.pearl@gmail.com. Best they sort of open up with, I heard you on. So I know it's somebody that's heard me on a podcast or something I was doing. So I'll read on. If I'm not captured in the first 2 sentences, spam, and it's gone. But I don't mind talking to folks or taking a question or two, or if they got an idea they want to run by me at some point or another. I do a lot of I do a fair amount of coaching. I do some some private work with folks. Now, if you're a university student and you're working on a business plan, I do coach, and I do take some kids around to some of the business plan competitions. We just did one at Rice here a few months ago. Another one here in Southern California at UCSD. Like to work with budding young entrepreneurs who are just starting their postgraduate journeys. So I'm generally accessible. I don't and if the relationship gets crazy or abusive, there's ways to just gone, cut loose in cyberspace. But I'm happy to talk to people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Howard, again. There you guys have it. Like I said earlier, if you didn't find a moment to get you some pen and paper to take some notes, because there was a lot of important things as it relates to who we are as people on this entrepreneurial journey, who we are as leaders, and just personally who we are. There's a lot of things that Howard, I believe, he just drove home and eloquently told us how we ought to be as leaders. I'll just put it like that. I mean, you can do what you want, but there's a lot of great things that were touched on today. And so please make sure that you like, share, subscribe, comment on this content. It definitely helps us get this message out to more and more people. And until next time, TPE family, peace.
Hey guys, what's up? It's your friend, Pastor John R. Adolph from the Antioch Church in Beaumont, Texas. And I just want to slip this in right quick so you'll never forget. It's all about progress over perfection here at TPE.
Tap into the Pivot Experience where we help young, hungry entrepreneurs move on to the next step.